Just felt like it.
Oil depot.
Boom, ba-boom!
August 23rd.
Explosion of a gas pipeline near Moscow.
The second strike in western Siberia, 3,000 kilometers away.
Whoa, holy king shit.
The SBU continues the special operation Web 2, striking at the center and the fuel heart of Moscow.
Russia's energy map is collapsing.
Boom, ba-boom! Friends, the SBU carried out the special operation Web 2, destroying locomotives with hundreds of tanks and dozens of pieces of equipment.
Maybe it's a factory?
A factory? Look at that.
We're screwed.
Uh-huh.
God, SBU, don't stop. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. An oil refinery is burning in Kstovo, Russia. A drone just now hit the Lukoil facility in Kstovo.
Damn, it's huge.
Look, a massive ship is heading this way.
Attacks have begun on Russia's northern, Pacific, and Black Sea fleets. The SBU and the Ukrainian armed forces are attacking military airfields, nuclear submarines, and the Russian Navy. Everything is on fire.
Even the ocean is sinking for now.
There it goes again, look. Oil depot.
Oil depot.
No Russian naval fleet, no matter how vast or strategically positioned, can effectively hide from the SBU's incredibly tiny and highly effective naval drones.
We'll discuss all this with top analyst Alexander Demchenko right now.
The special operation by the Ukrainian Armed Forces SBU and GUR continues. Gas pipelines have been blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. Last night, the oil refinery in Russia's Kstovo was burning and is still burning. There are powerful explosions and fires there.
This is a new phase of the war, and it is already being felt in Moscow.
Moreover, at the end of this month, Germany is supplying Ukraine with secret superweapons, missiles that can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Thousands of drones are attacking Russia, Moscow, and St. Petersburg. And this is only the beginning. Oh! The night in Russia is like a war zone.
Here comes the second UAV.
A lot of them are flying toward the city. It hit right on target over there. Oh, the second one! Take that, take that!
Seriously, what is that? A drone or what?
That is absolutely it. And now, the third one is truly and completely on fire, burning brightly. We have top analyst Alexander Demchenko with us. Sasha, hello!
Hello, Dasha. Hello, everyone.
Sasha, these are some top news stories.
The Germans said that the missiles will arrive any moment now, and will be able to strike Moscow and St. Petersburg.
A gas pipeline in Siberia has been blown up. Submarines have been attacked. I read about it.
And the most interesting news, the one I liked, a symbolic collapse. The Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier, might be decommissioned and scrapped.
What do you think?
I would say that the catastrophe is only just beginning. We're at the very start of this path. For Putin, of course, August will be a black month, an absolutely black month. I told you last time that August would be the end for him. He's done for. Just look at what's happening. In just a few days, the situation has changed dramatically. The New York Times got their headline right. The cover, the front page, Putin ruined everything. Putin messed up and made a mess for himself. You see? In the Kremlin there, in the portable toilet. What am I trying to say? That, of course, there will now be a massive attack from Russia, especially on Moscow. Ukraine will get those missiles. There will be strikes. But most importantly, Dasha, most likely Trump, who decided to expropriate an extra $5 billion from Putin. Just now, the news came in that he plans to seize Putin's frozen assets, and Trump will start and Europe will continue. There are 300 billion in Europe. So most likely Trump has given or already given Ukraine attention, already given Ukraine the green light to strike Moscow, the decision-making centers, with missiles. Now, out of nowhere, Patriots will start arriving from Norway and Germany. 3 units. Interesting. And who gave permission? Wasn't it the Americans? At the same time, Germany will transfer long-range missiles to Ukraine, which for a long time were prohibited. Attention. And who gave the green light for this, if not Washington? That's why Putin is now in for a series of the harshest surprises. The military, the armed forces of Ukraine, have already avenged that 1-year-old boy from Kherson by killing all those who destroyed that poor innocent child. I will probably remember for the rest of my life this image of the burned out playpen. This scene will always be before my eyes. All those people who killed have already gotten what they deserved. Now there will be a very harsh response for absolutely everything, because this past week has shown everyone, Trump in the White House, all of Washington, and the Europeans, that it's time to put an end to Putin. It's time to finish with Putin. Now Siberia is on fire. Their gas pipelines are exploding. What do? They supply military units. They supply military factories. We need to explain, what kind of gas pipelines are these? These are the lines that feed the gas production, which directly supply Russia's defense enterprises. They have been blown up. Dasha, just think, how far do you have to go? How crazy do you have to get? And how much do you have to mess around for all of Siberia to be burning like this? And not for the first time. So that you end up with a NATO base in Azerbaijan, NATO bases in Finland, British and French armies in Ukraine, and troops from 28 NATO member countries entering Ukraine after the ceasefire, which he is being forced into. Well, you see, when I look at this, I just have this realization. Either Vladimir Putin is a CIA agent and is simply handing over his country to America, or there will be a coup in the Kremlin in the near future, maybe even starting in August. Because no one has ever sold out Russia the way he is selling out Russia. No one has ever sold out Russia like this, you understand? He's just giving everything away, absolutely everything. If NATO, look, Putin fought to keep NATO bases away from Russia's borders so that the minimum flight time to Russia would be 7 minutes. Now it's just 2 minutes flight time to Russia. NATO troops are already at Russia's borders. The NATO army is already practically stationed right outside St. Petersburg. It has surrounded it. Do you understand? They're encircling, blockading St. Petersburg. So what? And what then? So I think that in August, we're facing not only the collapse of the Russian Federation's economy, but the beginning of a major economic crisis. We're not only in for Trump's rampage, who will force Putin to bend over into a very indecent and unpleasant position, folded in half into the zoo pose. But we're also facing a political catastrophe and a crisis in the Russian Federation. I think that a coup d'etat, maybe even a military one, carried out by a military junta is not far off.
I'm curious, Sasha, our audience, give this video a like and in the comments, write who you think will carry out this military coup. Like, comment, let's go. Sasha, who is even capable of a mission impossible pulling off this action?
I almost said Vladimir Rudolfovich Solovyov. Lately, he's been talking about Trump's pout quite a lot. He has some very strange fantasies. I don't know, Dasha, do you ever dream about Trump's lips? Personally, I don't. I don't know why Vladimir Solovyov dreams about them. He needs to be dreaming about Putin's ass and his lips. What do Trump's lips have to do with anything? There are some really strange fantasies going on there, but by the way, I can't help but think that Solovyov is a sleeper agent for Malyak, a sleeper agent for the Ukrainian security services. He just needs to wake up and destroy their main boss, the head of the mafia, Putin. Seriously though, if we're being serious, what we've seen lately, I mean the murder of Starovoyt, the Minister of Transport in Russia.
Yes.
This has changed everything completely. Now the Kemezov clan is going to be under attack. Actually, they already are. This whole story with the wreath, when Putin sent a wreath, RIA Novosti reported it, Peskov confirmed it, then Putin said he hadn't sent anything. RIA Novosti deleted Peskov's statement from the briefing. Putin said he hadn't sent anything. And 9 officials led by Kemezov, 9 ministers with Kemezov, the head of Rostek, until recently one of Putin's closest allies, showed up at the funeral, making it clear that this was a blow to their clan, to Kemezov's clan, to the clan of that security official who opposes Patrushev and Sechin and talks about the need for reconciliation, about a pause in the so-called war. This means that the Hawks have set their sights on those so-called peacemakers. And now there's going to be a major showdown. At least half of the Russian elite will definitely die off in the near future, and there will be major bloody showdowns. And Putin will be killing, throwing people out of windows, imprisoning, whatever you can imagine, he's going to do it now. And this Kemezov clan, I think these 9 ministers who voted with their feet and staged this mini mutiny, a public flogging of Putin, and were directly protected by Rotenberg and Kemezov, whose transport revenue streams were seized today and transferred to the Kovalchuks and directly to Putin himself. Yes, putting all that money from the Russian Ministry of Transport straight into his own pocket. I think a massive purge is about to begin, and at least half of Russia's elite is now under threat. And now, attention, the question is, who will get whom? Putin has already made the first move. Putin has struck a blow. Putin has struck a blow against certain Kremlin factions. Now, a blow will come from them. Now the other side will strike back. So we will find out who will be left standing in the end. I think Putin is now going to use absolutely repressive methods. The entire repressive apparatus, the whole Lubyanka, all the security forces will be redirected to a different task. But who will stand against him? I suspect that there will now be very large-scale mass crackdowns. It will simply be a bloodbath in Moscow near the Kremlin. Will the entire Kremlin be turned upside down? I don't know, Dasha. Whether we'll wake up to the news that tanks have entered Moscow, that Putin has lost communication, that the Kremlin is without power and surrounded, and that a military junta has taken power with the money of certain Russian oligarchs and certain Russian security officials. But it seems to me that there will now be massive purges in Moscow and a real bloodbath because the board has been flipped over, because Putin has done something that no one has done since Stalin's time. There was an unspoken agreement right after Stalin not to destroy your own, not to destroy your own. Putin decided to take everything and reshuffle it. The problem is that if these very people don't stop him now, don't neutralize, dispose of, or eliminate him, no matter how, whether they send him off to a dacha, seal him in a bunker, in a portable toilet, or remove him. Anything at all. If they don't deal with him now, he will simply destroy them all. So now let's watch Russia very closely. There will be major showdowns there, a big bloody mess in Moscow in the near future.
Sasha, there was a very interesting story when for 3 days in a row we attacked Moscow and St. Petersburg with drones. After that, Russian war correspondents wrote that they had information that Ukraine was preparing a strike of 1,000 drones on Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then Nevzorov reported that Moscow's air defense system Pantsir had started attacking a civilian airplane. This information hasn't been confirmed, but it did appear. And they're jamming communications, jamming the internet. And here's the main question. Could Putin stage a terrorist attack in Moscow and St. Petersburg? Could they shoot down their own plane? And why are they jamming communications? And could this also be a trigger for certain turbulence or terrorist attacks orchestrated by Putin himself or the FSB?
They're jamming communications because, well, everyone thinks they're fighting against unmanned aerial vehicles, against drones this way. In reality, they're jamming communications so that all of Moscow and all the big cities know and see nothing at all. These are obvious things. It's clear that this jamming doesn't really help them much. That's the first point. The second point. As for this particular strike, we've talked about this for a long time, about the Belarusian passenger plane, by the way. We've discussed it for a while, Dasha. The fact that Vladimir Putin and his agencies, the security services, the FSB, Lubyanka, and others, are preparing a series of mass terrorist attacks on the territory of Moscow. This signal, for example, when a drone fell near Vnukovo, in a yard close to the Vnukovo airport, when people were kept waiting, not allowed to leave, and the carpet plan was in effect. They weren't allowed to leave the airport, not even the airport grounds. That is not just the terminals, but the entire grounds. So what we're saying is that, yes, a terrorist attack is most likely being prepared, probably targeting airports, and most likely all these key airports like Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, and Pulkovo are under significant threat. Most likely, yes, they are planning to destroy a passenger plane on their own territory, preferably a foreign one. They already destroyed an Azerbaijani plane, tried to pin it on someone else, but it didn't work. Now they tried to pin it on a Belarusian plane, but that didn't work either. They're preparing some kind of series of sabotage acts, provocations, blowing up planes, destroying them, shooting them down, destroying airports, like when one of their anti-missiles falls on an airport somewhere, taking the lives of thousands of people. All this is to blame Ukraine, to escalate the war, to intensify the situation, to force everything and cancel the contract-based mobilization, switching the army to a conscription-based, unpaid system. There's no reason to pay the cannon fodder anymore, as they've already calculated in the Kremlin. They really don't have any money left. They don't have enough money for the war in its current form or for defense spending until the end of this year. So now they have a choice. Either pay their own people or send these people as cannon fodder for free, risking their own regime but still making sure to pay their security forces. Because Vladimir Putin's regime is built on the security forces. That's the second point. Third, when he struck the Belarusian plane, you know what I thought, Dasha? It's actually a kind of signal to Lukashenko. We could wake up one fine day and for no apparent reason, Russia's air defense forces could launch anti-missiles and strike a Belarusian plane, especially since they have them in Belarus, strike the plane of the head of state, Lukashenko himself. Lukashenko doesn't want to directly help Putin in the war. Well, how should he help? By openly entering the war. He doesn't want to send his army against Ukraine or directly against the Baltic states. Yes, he allows Putin's drones to be sent through his territory to the Lithuanian border, where they explode right before reaching Lithuania. But he doesn't want to take too many risks. He doesn't want to take risks because he understands that as soon as Putin starts some kind of war with his help, Lukashenko will be ousted. Lukashenko, his family, his inner circle, they will lose all their money, all their property, and no one will help them. he won't have time to escape to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or China, where he's been moving his money lately. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Putin threatens Lukashenko like this. We recently discussed a very strange, a rather odd coincidence, right? When the Azerbaijani plane was shot down, and at the same time, the plane of Azerbaijan's leader, Ilham Aliyev, was taking off. Now, there's another interesting situation. A Belarusian plane, so is this a signal to Lukashenko or not? Basically, a signal that you also have a plane and I can shoot it down. Are you going to go to war with me or not? This is really interesting. Moreover, I thought that Lukashenko, just like everyone else, like Shoigu, like Gerasimov, like Patrushev, who was removed, like Kadyrov, who it's unclear what happened to him, whether he was poisoned or just got sick, just like that, right? Like, for example, General Surovikin, who had all his kidneys, his liver, his lungs beaten, right? They broke his ribs and sent him to Africa. Then his wife barely managed to save him from the basements. And so on down the list. General Spartak. All those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair, all of them have been disposed of in one way or another. Shoigu, for example, is now under threat after Surovikin. I think he's next, or General Gerasimov is next. One of them will be executed publicly in the near future. But all those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair in one way or another, whether on the opposing side or supporting Prigozhin, they have all been disposed of, neutralized in one way or another. Only Lukashenko remains. And I think that now Putin will actively go after Alexander Lukashenko. And right now, this is not beneficial for Ukraine because what is definitely not needed is for Putin to officially install his own Gauleiter in Belarus, some lieutenant colonel or colonel, yet another security officer, who would directly orchestrate the entire war from that territory. This is something that absolutely nobody needs. Not Ukraine, not Europe, not NATO, not America. And it's not for nothing that Kellogg came to Belarus. It's not for nothing that he held talks with Lukashenko. Apparently, they are trying to dissuade Lukashenko from siding with Vladimir Putin and with China. And finally, regarding drones. Everyone missed an important piece of news. I believe this is actually the most important news of the week.
Yes.
The US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, made a statement. He recorded a video. The video was widely circulated, Pete Hegseth and a drone flying nearby.
I saw it, yes.
You saw it, right? So everyone was laughing, but the most important thing wasn't what was shown, but what he actually said. So what did the US Secretary of Defense say? First, the US will be the world's key country, the most powerful country when it comes to drones. The US is becoming a drone nation. Second, 3 additional huge drone testing grounds are being opened in America. And third, the most important point, small drones for the US are now considered munitions, just regular ammunition. This means they are not counted, that they can be used, replenished, and, well, so to speak, they are not considered a separate type of weapon. In other words, they can be written off without any issue. It doesn't matter how many strikes you make, how many of these drones you use. What does this mean in practice? It means that Ukraine will eventually receive millions of these drones. Millions. And so, as you asked, thousands of drones will fly toward Moscow. Tens of thousands of drones will be flying all over Russia. There is no other option. Right now, Vladimir Putin, with the help of the Chinese and North Koreans, is receiving artillery shells. In fact, South Korea just recently reported that, if I'm not mistaken, North Korea has already sent Putin 12 million artillery shells. China is building a factory in the Khabarovsk region, or I think it's already been built, to produce drones. Thousands of drones, right? That's why there's no other option now but to send these drones to Ukraine, to make it the most powerful drone country in America. And to give Ukraine the opportunity to test American modern new technologies on Russia. So I think Ukraine will get everything it needs, not only long-range missiles, but also drones. And Moscow, of course, will be ablaze. And not just Moscow, but all other key centers, including decision-making centers.
Dear audience, top analyst Sasha Demchenko and I work together twice a week on Tuesdays and Sundays. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Let us know in the comments what you think about our tandem. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel where Alexander Demchenko appears, and let us know in the comments what you personally expect from the drone and missile war. A very important topic that I would like to focus on, Sasha, is that the US is no longer restricting strikes, and that Germany has officially confirmed that as early as July, Ukraine received long-range missiles capable of destroying airfields, headquarters, and depots on Russian territory. That right now an oil refinery in the Krasnodar region has been blown up. A gas pipeline in Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug, the Black Sea and Pacific fleets have been attacked, and the Admiral Kuznetsov is being scrapped. When we talk about this, it means Ukraine is now gaining the advantage. What do you think?
I think the board has been flipped. When the Chancellor of Germany says that the time for diplomacy is over, it means they have bet on war. They are ready to fight. That is for the first time in the past 6 months, or rather, I would say in the past 3.5 years, because for 3.5 years, the bet was on containing Russia. They thought they could come to an agreement with Putin, persuade him, appease him, and conduct some parallel negotiations. There were various iterations. Biden had his own approach, Trump had his own, each had their own format. The Europeans, it's unclear what they were thinking all this time. But now the bet has been placed on war. They are ready to encircle Putin, to twist him up tightly like a ball, right? That's why things are going to get very tough for Putin now. And it's not for nothing that Lavrov requested urgent talks with Rubio. It's not a coincidence that they spoke twice on the sidelines of ASEAN in Malaysia. It's not for nothing that Putin has minimized strikes on Ukraine. So we're seeing a completely different reaction now. Well, that's because everyone is fed up with Putin. Because when you brazenly, on US Independence Day, slap the American president in the face with wet underwear, just expect that tons of piss will be poured right back in your face. That's all there is to it. That's what we've just seen, and that's what we're going to witness in the near future. No one is going to stand on ceremony with Putin anymore. As for the Admiral Kuznetsov, that was the only Russian aircraft carrier, and it was under repair for an absurdly long number of years. And in Russia, they honestly admitted, we are not capable of repairing it. Why can't they repair it? Here's the question. There are no spare parts, no capabilities, no professional engineers. All of that was eaten up by sanctions, and most notably, there's no money. There's no money for these insanely expensive aircraft carriers. But what about those plans to build several aircraft carriers, carrier groups, to catch up with America? And what about all that talk that supposedly we're overtaking China? Let's go ahead and get ourselves some carrier groups. There will be no more carrier groups in Russia, and there will be no more aircraft carriers in Russia. Are you going to fight with barges? That's it. Are you going to haul watermelons on those barges? There will be nothing else. Nothing. Everything is being scrapped. Everything is being scrapped. Yes, if it weren't for the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, Russia would have long since been brought to its knees and begged for mercy. Well, maybe not for mercy, but in any case, to be serious, it would have gone and signed a peace agreement. China is helping, the North Koreans are helping. Iran isn't helping as much anymore. They've already seen what Vladimir Putin's words are worth, as he now brazenly wants to take Iran's nuclear technologies and transfer them to himself. That's what kind of peacemaker he is. How about we give Iran another Budapest memorandum, this time performed by Putin? You see, we'll take the nuclear technologies, move them to Moscow, to the Kremlin, so he can have one more red button, or so that red button gets even bigger. But whatever the case, Dasha, all this shows that Putin doesn't have any money. The budget deficit is already at 4 trillion. They say that if Trump imposes sanctions, the deficit will be 7.5 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. Moreover, Gazprom has $1 trillion in debt. It's bankrupt. All of Russia's key enterprises are bankrupt. Bankrupt. Every third car dealer in Russia is out of business. A third of taxi drivers in Russia are already out of work. Mortgage lending has dropped exactly threefold. Mortgage lending has dropped exactly threefold. Putin has burned through $350 billion, already 15% of his economy. Crippling sanctions will take out 30 to 40% of his economy. Oil production in Russia has fallen by 30 to 35%. There's no revenue in the budget. What are we even talking about? What are we talking about? Putin has no money, but he still needs to feed his security forces. And what does that mean? First, it means he will start cutting. He won't give out money. He won't pay his cannon fodder. That's the first thing. Second, this means that Vladimir Putin will simply reshuffle his entire inner circle, shake up the top ranks, and redistribute the financial flows to his own family and close associates, taking these flows away from his oligarchs. Just recently, they took a gold miner, one of the most important Russian oligarchs, and took away his Ural gold mining enterprise. They're already seizing gold. They're already taking over agriculture. What are we talking about here? Putin has no money. He has to find this money somewhere. He needs to get this money from somewhere. And he will take this money from the Russian people. That's all there is to it. So this whole mess will end soon if Trump, not just in words but in action, puts Putin in a really tough spot. The war will end soon. Right now, Trump has the power to change everything and turn the whole board upside down. I hope the board will be completely overturned. And right now, Putin is very frightened. He has finally realized that he went too far and that it was a mistake.
Sasha, I want us to spend the last 5 to 8 minutes talking about Trump as well. But before that, there's an important topic. The Kerch Bridge, the Crimean Bridge, and occupied Crimea. This is very important considering that now the Germans will provide us. I understand that with German money, we have produced our own weapons and so on, and they will be ready by the end of this month. Will the new weapons strike the Kerch Bridge, or will it be the Taurus missiles, Storm Shadow, or the long-range Neptunes? And will we damage the Kerch Bridge enough for it to be a very serious political and military blow to Putin?
Listen, the destruction of the Kerch, that is the Crimean Bridge, is inevitable. Anything that is ugly, that doesn't fit into the architectural design that was built according to Stalinist templates, must be destroyed and will be destroyed. You see, Dasha, the thing is, here's the situation. There is no other option but to drive out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Russian bases, and Russian military from the territory of occupied Crimea. As soon as Putin loses Crimea, or everyone realizes that Crimea is under threat, this regime will instantly collapse. Everyone is well aware of this. Yes, so when he is now transferring weapons, anti-missile, anti-aircraft systems, and so on, from the Donbass, which he and his criminal troops have occupied, to the territory of the Crimean Peninsula, he is demonstrating to everyone, first of all, that he is running short on weapons. Second, that for him, Crimea is the most important, if we consider all the occupied Ukrainian territories, apart from the whole of Ukraine, of course. But as the British have already written, he would have to wait 99 or 100 years, and he won't live that long. That's obvious. I think his family will poison him with those little pills and they'll keep him alive. Next, you see, this also shows that he doesn't care about the occupied territories or any of those people. He's ready to sacrifice those people in Donbass and elsewhere in all the occupied territories of Ukraine just to keep Crimea. And a strike on Crimea, a strike on that bridge, these are absolutely inevitable things. The bridge will fall, the bridge will be destroyed. Malyuk is already on it. Last time he was calculating, we discussed this with you. 200, 400, right? 400, that's the explosives. Well, fine, they calculated it. 400 didn't work, so it will be 10,000 tons. That's all there is to it. All of them already have plans. None of this is happening by accident. Have you noticed that not a single Western representative, from Washington to Brussels to London, no one has said anything about the Crimean Bridge, the explosions, the strikes on Crimea, and so on? This means that everyone is in agreement on everything. There are no more prohibitions. All restrictions have been lifted. There will be strikes, German missiles, French missiles, British missiles, and American missiles. Everything will be used. They will target the occupied territories, the Kerch Bridge, and even Moscow. Everything, every place where decisions are made from where strikes are launched will be burned. There is no other option here. None. And Vladimir Putin is to blame for this. This is what every Russian official and citizen must understand. Vladimir Putin is the root of it all. And the New York Times is absolutely right when it wrote, Putin ruined everything. The good times are over. There is no more romance, no more honeymoon, or whatever you want to call it. It's over. The bride has left. For Putin, this is where it all ends.
So the question is, who isn't the bride in this tandem, Sasha? Let's figure it out. Trump or Putin?
No, well, Trump acted like the bride for a long time, but then apparently he decided to switch roles a bit. Now, yes, now Putin is the one going wild, not the bride, you see? As for Trump, continuing this story. Look, I don't know what Donald Trump will say, but whatever he says now, we can already see it in action. The green light has been given. All obstacles have been completely removed. The missiles are coming, the drones will come. And we're talking huge numbers, millions of drones, dozens of missiles, hundreds of missiles will be sent. And there will be strikes. This is already inevitable. It's already a given. It doesn't matter how Trump will use the money. The money will go, patriots will go, shells, ammunition, missiles, and weapons will go. Everything will go. There are no more illusions in Washington regarding Vladimir Putin. There are no illusions that Vladimir Putin might agree to a peace deal. He will be forced to. And most likely he will be forced this year, and maybe even sooner than we can imagine.
Sasha, to wrap up a very important topic. For the first time since taking office, Trump is considering the possibility of allocating new funding for Ukraine. According to CBS News, that's $3.85 billion. Moreover, Trump, as you mentioned at the very beginning, may allocate new funding to Ukraine, $5 billion from frozen Russian assets.
Sanctions will be adopted with Trump's amendments directly. Trump will have in his hands the tools and mechanisms with which he can put pressure on China, India, and a number of other countries that buy from Russia or directly help Russia carry out black market schemes and transfer dual-use goods, both military and civilian, into Russia, and so on. In other words, these flows will be shut down, the shadow fleet will be shut down, mostly shut down. And I suspect that they'll slightly open the taps in America and Saudi Arabia, and they'll deliberately crash the price of oil. What's also very important, Dasha. So that's regarding the sanctions. There will be sanctions. There's no need to worry here. There will be sanctions. Trump will have the authority, Congress will approve everything, and so on. There will be sanctions. And as for weapon systems, we need to understand that Trump has crossed a certain Rubicon. That was a red line for him. He didn't want to cross that line. He didn't want to send anything. He had already tried. He called Vladimir Putin 6 times. Nothing worked out. He proposed a meeting to Putin. Nothing worked out. He sent envoys to Putin, including official representatives, the Secretary of State, at that time also the head of his Security Council, and his intelligence officers. He sent absolutely everyone. Nothing worked out. Nothing. When we now discuss the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, because Trump, in parallel, aside from Biden's package, is also allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine from his own side. He is sending one Patriot system himself. Norway and Germany, after coordinating with Trump, are sending another 2 or 3 Patriot systems. This is very expensive weaponry. This is the kind of weapon that recently saved Israel and will save Israel more than once in the future. So, Dasha, what we're talking about now is a very important component. Donald Trump, the President of America, has crossed a red line for himself. He has crossed the Rubicon. We're talking about the fact that Trump, for the first time, began providing Ukraine with very expensive weapon systems, very costly weaponry. This is just the beginning, and it's extremely important. In other words, this step has been taken. From now on, he won't turn back from this path. And this will directly affect the entire war, the course of hostilities, and not in Putin's favor. Once again, friends, the final board has been overturned. Now everything is in Trump's hands. But there's another very important point. No one is going to play games with Putin anymore. And Putin finds himself in a very difficult, I would even say stalemate situation. August will be a black month for Russia and for Putin.
And we're getting closer to it. A brilliant analysis from Alexander Demchenko. Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha works twice a week. On my YouTube channel, Dasha Shaslivaya, it's Tuesday and Sunday. And on Dimitro Gordon's YouTube channel, it's Wednesday and Monday. So watch us, give us a like, and write a few kind words about our tandem. It's very important. We work for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. Sasha, thank you very much and see you this Tuesday.
See you next time. Bye.